Okay, so we're starting here on page 26, and we're in direct speech. This is Philoetius speaking, who is the cowherd, one of the loyal servants of Odysseus. And he begins, O Polytherseide Philokertone. Now notice in this word here, you've got the iota with not only an acute accent, but also the diacritic mark, the two dots, which tells you that that is a separate syllable. So therefore this word is Polytherseide, it's 6 syllables in total. So, and this word is also a patronymic. It means son of Polytherses. And then philokertome, this is a vocative form of the adjective, and philokertome means literally fond of mocking or something like that. So I translated it as contemptuous. Oh, contemptuous son of Polytherses. And this is, as we saw before, this is Ctesippus. So we have here Philoetius talking to Ctesippus. And he says, contemptuous son of Polytherses, do not, mare, do not. So you have this construction here, which is mare plus infinitive, which is a negative command. And we also have the word pote, which means ever. So do not ever, at all, pan, or by any means, do not apain mega, literally talk big. In other words, do not boast. And then there's also this phrase, akon aphradies, which actually I missed out in the translation, so you should add that in. Akon is a present participle. It means yielding. Ako means I yield or give in to something. And aphradia means folly, something like that. So yielding to folly would be the translation. Akon aphradies. But Allah. So don't do that, don't boast, but instead, epitrepsai, literally turn or give or leave the muthon, the word or the matter in general, to the gods, theoisin, dative plural. Leave the matter to the gods. In other words, don't tell people, don't go around saying that you're going to win. Let the gods decide who's going to win and who's going to lose. And then he says at the end of the sentence, epe, since they are, AC, polypherteroi, much stronger. So poly means much, and pherteroi means stronger. And air here is just one of these emphatic particles that you don't really need to translate. And then he says in line 290, tutor, this. And then we have to imagine a main verb like esti, right? So this is a xeneion, which means literally a guest gift. In other words, a gift that you give someone as a token of respect for them, as a token of you offering them hospitality or them offering you hospitality. That was part of the ritual of hospitality in ancient Greece, exchanging gifts. So this is a guest gift for you, toi, right? That's the dative case, for you, which in later ancient Greek would be soi. Anti-podos. Now, anti plus genitive here means in exchange for or in return for. And then podos means, is genitive of pous. It means the foot, or in this case, the hoof, which, hon, pote edokas, you once gave. So pote means once, edokas means you gave. To godlike Odysseus, antitheo Odyssei. So that's a dative phrase, antitheo meaning godlike, Odyssei being Odysseus. And then we have a participle, roaming, alletuonti, dative because it's agreeing with Odysseus, roaming or as he roamed, kata domon, through the house. kata plus accusative meaning through. Now, what's this about a hoof? This is a reference to the fact that earlier in the poem, this particular arrogant suitor called Ctesippus threw a bull's hoof at Odysseus. He didn't know it was Odysseus. Odysseus was disguised as a beggar at the time, but you know, as a way of mocking the beggar / Odysseus, Ctesippus threw a cow's hoof, a bull's hoof, at him. And basically, Philœtius is now saying, you know, this is my revenge for this spear is the revenge for the hoof that you threw at Odysseus before. So Philœtius is taking revenge for his master, Odysseus. Okay, so that's the end of Philœtius' speech. And then we have this word air here, which in this case is a past tense of a Homeric verb to speak. So that means he spoke. And the subject is Epiboukolos, the herdsman of the Boon helikon. Now, helikon means curved or spiraling, as in helix. You know, you've probably talked in biology about double helix and so on. So that comes from the Greek, like this word helikon, meaning curving, and then boon means cows or cattle. So helikon, boon are literally spiraling cows, and I think this is a reference to the shape of the horn. So I would translate it as spiral horned cattle or something like that. But Odysseus, autar Odysseus, wounded, utar, that's the main verb, wounded, Damastoriden, this is a patronymic, the son of Damastor. And then this word here, autoskedon, is an adverb. It means something like at close quarters or hand to hand. With his long spear, macro NKE. Right? Macros meaning long, enkos meaning a spear, and this is the dative form because it means with a long spear. And remember, again, this particular accent over the I, that diacritic tells you that it's a separate syllable. So NKE is a 3-syllable word or a trisyllabic word. Okay. And Telemachus de, wounded, utar, Leokriton, here in the accusative case because he's the object, and he's described as Euenoriden. That's another patronymic, son of Evenor. And Telemachus did this with a spear, duri, dative case, with a spear, meson keneona. Now this is an accusative of respect, so literally he wounded him with respect to his middle flank, or in the mid flank. Some translations say in the groin at this point. And he drove elassen, right, from elauno, to drive. He drove the bronze, chalcon, diapro, that's an adverb that means all the way through. So he drove the bronze right through this man's mid-flank, meson keneona. And eripe, he fell, this refers of course to Leocritus, he fell prenes, that means sort of face forward, right? He fell forwards, we might say. And he struck elasse. This is from elauno again. Literally, he drove, but we would say he struck the chthona. This is the accusative of the word chthon, which means the ground. He struck the ground pantimetopo, with his whole forehead. So pas means whole or all, and a metopon is a forehead. And here the phrase is dative because it means with his whole forehead. And again, remember in Greek, that dative singular can often be recognized by the iota subscript, which you can see there under the omega. Okay, and then let's move on to, where are we, page 28, line 297. We have then, tote, then, Athena, Athenaia, and I actually didn't bother to translate the word dare here, right? This is one of those particles that you don't always have to translate. Then Athena, anesken, right? This is a compound verb. It's the verb echo, to have or hold, with ana at the front, and ana means up. So she held up and the object is aegida, which is the accusative of aegis. Now this is something called the aegis. In English we spell it A-E-G-I-S, and the aegis is a sort of goatskin shield, which is a weapon which is associated with the goddess Athena. And the idea is that it strikes terror into the hearts of mortals because they recognize that this is the shield of Athena and she's coming into battle against them. So Athena held up the aegis, and the aegis, because it's so scary, through its associations with Athena coming to fight you, it's described with the adjective phthisimbroton, which means something like life-destroying. So she held up the life-destroying aegis. Hupsothen, from on high, or just on high, hupsothen. Ex orophes, from the roof. So ex plus genitive, and then orophes is the genitive of orophe, which means a roof. Okay, and the phrenes, the minds of them, tone. And I think when Homer says of them, he means of the suitors. So you could say their minds, or you could say the minds of the suitors. Eptoiethen, that means were dismayed. That's a passive form. They were dismayed. And they, hoide, and we're still talking about the suitors, they fled ephebonto, through the hall, kata plus accusative, kata megaron, through the hall, like, hos, like cattle, boes, of the herd, agelai. So they're like, you know, they're not acting like some proud solitary bull in a field. They're acting like, you know, cows in a herd who get panicked by something and they all run away together. It's like that. And then Homer kind of expands this simile. So he imagines for a moment why these cows would be running away. So he says, these cows, tas, and that's accusative, and therefore it's the object. So these cows, the iolos oistros, the darting gadfly, right? Iolos means darting or quick or nimble or something like that, and an oistros is a gadfly. So these, the darting gadfly, ephormethes, having rushed on, and of course it's having rushed on them, right? So having rushed on them, the darting gadfly, edonesen, rushes them along, sort of drives them into motion. In n plus dative, the spring season, earine hora. So a hora can mean an hour, like 60 minutes, but it can also mean a season of time, like autumn, etc. And earinos is an adjective that means to do with spring. So, and then Homer finishes the simile by saying, and in fact, also just notice there again, the dative singular ending with the iota subscript there, hore en e arine. And then Homer finishes the simile by saying hote, when, and don't worry about te there, when the emata makra, the long days, so makra means long, emata means days, and then pelontai is a verb, really pelomai is a verb just like the verb to be. really, or the verb to come. It's just when the long days happen, or when the long days come. Now, this is also worth just noticing. In later ancient Greek, the word for a day is hemera, but which is a feminine noun. But in Homer, it's emar, neuter, plural emata, with a smooth breathing. So it's a slightly different word. So Homer is basically saying, in a simile, you know how in the spring these gadflies come, they buzz around the cows, and it causes the cows to panic, and they run away everywhere. He's saying that's what the suitors were like. And then he actually gives a second simile to describe the same thing. So, and as der hos, the is hoi, the crooked taloned. So this word gampsonukes means with crooked or curved talons. And then there's another adjective, ankylokelai, which means with curved beaks. Right, so the crooked taloned, curved beaked aigupioi, which means vultures. Having come, elfontes, aorist participle from erkomai, having come from the mountains, ex oreon, ex plus genitive, having come from the mountains, dart thorosi, upon birds, epi ornithesi. So epi plus dative, meaning upon someone, and ornithesi, meaning birds. This is where the word ornithology comes from, which is the study of birds. And then the simile continues, which tai, and this is referring to the smaller birds, the ornithesi, which ptosusai nephea, that ptosusai is a participle that means fleeing from, and nephea are the clouds, right? So fleeing the clouds. They hientai, that means they're sort of on the lookout or something. They're scouring. Enpedio, on the plain, or just scouring the plain. So hoi here in line 305, this is now referring to the vultures, the aigupioi. They, ep almenoi, having pounced upon these tas, they killed them, olekusin, nor ude, is tis alke, any defense, gignetai, literally gignetai means become or happen. So nor does any defense happen, nor is any defense available, nor any escape. Ude fuge. So ude means nor and fuge means escape. Now gignetai, yes, means to become or happen. I translated it here as to be available. So gignetai is available. And then at the end of this simile, we are told that men, aneres, rejoice, kairusi, in the chase. So kairo plus dative means to rejoice in something. And here you have the dative, agre, which means the chase. And you can tell that it's dative from that iota subscript again. So Homer has given us two different similes to understand what's happening to the suitors. One simile in which the suitors are like a bunch of cows who have been thrown into confusion by a gadfly. And the other simile is to some birds, and the birds think that they're hunting. Right? These are birds who are flying below the clouds so that they can look on the ground and maybe spot a mouse or something they can attack. But in reality, they are not the hunter. they are the prey of the bigger birds, the vultures, that then attack them. And this simile is a little bit more precise because, of course, the suitors, much like these birds, they think that they are the predators, the hunters, because they are much more numerous than Odysseus and his companions. But in reality, they are becoming the prey, they are becoming the victims of Odysseus and his little group.